Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of Best Albums by Year 1977. So this is a series where I'm going to take a look back at the best 50 albums from the last 50 years, of which I'll only be choosing an artist once during this series, so you won't see any artists repeat except maybe like in the runner-up categories, but not the actual one chosen for year. So it's going to make choosing these selections that much harder, but I also think that much more fun. And for this particular episode, we are going to focus on 1977, but before we jump into all of that, if you're new to my channel and haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this, with Best Albums by Year 1977. So I do want to issue a disclosure right off the bat here that I wasn't born until 1976. So I am coming at this from a different angle than most of you out there that grew up with these albums, but I do love these albums all the same. And part of this, I also want to set some context, some history for what was going on in 1977. So first off, we've got Jimmy Carter being sworn in as the 39th President of the United States. Apple Computer is incorporated, so they've finally become a corporation this year. NASA performed a test flight for the Space Shuttle Enterprise. That was the first time that took place. The rings of planet Uranus are found or discovered. Chuck E. Cheese opens its doors for the first time. Space Mountain opens at Disneyland. Star Wars opens in theaters to become one of the most iconic films ever. Led Zeppelin performs in the United States for the last time, and the United States Senate holds hearings on Project MK Ultra, which is in part what Stranger Things is based on. If you weren't aware of that, check that out. Hulk Hogan debuts in wrestling. Elvis Presley dies at the age of 42. Comedian Groucho Marx dies at the age of 86. And NASA launches the Voyager program, which is still going today. It eventually left our solar system and has traveled further than any other spacecraft in history. Atari gaming console is first released. The Food Stamp Act is enacted, and it starts the modern day food stamp program. And Leonard Skinner's plane crashes, killing 3 of its members. All right, but there were so many great albums released in 1977. AC/DC, Rush, Yes, Kansas, Cheap Trick, Ted Nugent, Foreigner, Steve Miller Band, and Styx, just to name a few. And you can see a lot of those albums there floating around me. So many great albums. I do have 5 runner-up albums to discuss with you before we jump into my favorite album of 1977. But the first runner-up goes to Fleetwood Mac, Rumors. It's their 11th studio album, second one to feature both Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks in the lineup, and in my opinion, truly a rock masterpiece, both in sound and production value for it. Despite the band members falling apart at the time, the album is actually a very tight and cohesive effort for them. It's filled with lots of classic tracks. It's got Dreams, which is sung by Stevie Nicks, Don't Stop, which is sung by Lindsey Buckingham, and Go Your Own Way, also sung by Lindsey Buckingham. 3 of their biggest songs ever. And I think it still sounds as fresh today as it did back then, 44 years ago, and would ultimately go on to become one of the biggest selling albums around the world, having sold over 20 million copies in the US and an estimated 40 million around the world. Next runner-up goes to Meat Loaf, Bat Out of Hell, debut studio album by him, and a completely unique styled album at the time, effectively creating its own genre, theater rock. And for me, the album is as much a Jim Steinman album as it is a Meat Loaf album, considering that Jim Steinman wrote all the material on it. Features the big hits Paradise by the Dashboard Light, You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth, and of course the title track, Bat Out of Hell. And the album too, like Rumors, would go on to become one of the biggest selling albums of all time, selling 14 million copies in the United States with an estimated sales of 40 million around the world. All right, the next runner-up goes to Pink Floyd, Animals, 10th studio album, concept album by these guys and loosely based on George Orwell's political fable Animal Farm, which also focused on the socio-political conditions of the day. And while the album itself does feature 5 tracks on it, tracks 1 and 2, the song Pigs on the Wing, are essentially split into, they're one track, but they're split to bookend the album. And so they really act more like an intro and outro to the album itself. And so the real meat and potatoes of this album are the 3 long-form compositions that are in the middle of this. You've got Dogs, which is 17 minutes, Pigs, 3 different ones, which is 11 minutes, and Sheep, which is 10 minutes. And so one of the things I really like is those long-form compositions. It really allows me to sink my teeth into this album itself, and just making it ultimately one of my favorite albums by the band for that reason. Okay, the next runner-up goes to Queen, News of the World, 6th studio album. At the time, it was the band's biggest album that they had put out, and due to the musical environment at the time with punk and everything, the band did simplify its overall symphonic sound for this release here, and it features the 1-2 punch right off the bat with We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions, which are just 2 of the most iconic songs the band ever recorded throughout its entire catalog. Plus then you add in the iconic album art for this thing here that's created by sci-fi artist Frank Kelly Frears, and I think it just puts this whole album over the top. Okay, and the final runner-up album goes to Lynyrd Skynyrd's Street Survivors, 5th studio album by the band. It was the last one recorded before the fatal plane crash that killed 3 of its band members, including vocalist Ronnie Van Zant, and features some of their biggest songs, What's Your Name and That Smell, which happened to showcase their new guitarist, Steve Gaines, very well on it. And so the album ultimately showed the possibilities of what could have been had the plane crash not happened and killed 3 of its members there. In all, though, this would be their final recording until the band reformed with Ronnie's younger brother, Johnny, taking over vocals, and then they returned to recording in 1991 with this album here, which is a fantastic one. If you've never checked it out, I do recommend it. Okay, and so my favorite album of 1977 goes to Kiss, Love Gun. 6th studio album by these guys, and features album art by fantasy artist Ken Kelly, who had also done the album art for Destroyer just a year earlier there. And this was the first album that featured Ace Frehley on lead vocals. He sang on the song Shock Me, which incidentally is actually based on a true story. Listen to the lyrics of that one. And so this album here features all 4 of the members on lead vocals for the first time, which is kind of a cool thing there, really elevating the individual status of each member. And yet it's full of classic Kiss tracks. We've got I Stole Your Love, sung by Paul Stanley, Christine 16 by Gene Simmons, and the title track Love Gun, also sung by Paul Stanley. But for me, it's the deep album cuts, as it is in most cases with these albums. Hooligans, sung by Peter Criss, is my favorite song on the album, one of the best songs he ever did. Then you've also got Almost Human by Gene Simmons, another really great one there. And so just all of those songs, including those deep cuts, I think really hit this album out of the park, and which is why this one here happens to be my favorite album of 1977. So the album itself, I wanted to point out, it was remastered in 1997, so 20 years on there, this one here. But in 2014, it got the deluxe treatment with a bonus disc of a bunch of rarities and stuff on it. 11 rarity tracks on here. It's got some demos and some live cuts and stuff like that on it, and also came with a cool magnet to Love Gun style type thing like this. And so pretty cool overall packaging and the way that it was done for this deluxe treatment. Glad that they did something like that. And of course, now you all know we're leading up to the deluxe treatment of Destroyer, so that one's pretty exciting there. But there you go. That is the best album of 1977, and do check the description for links to related videos. In particular, Queen, News of the World. I did a unboxing of the deluxe edition of that, and Bat Out of Hell, Meatloaf versus the Musical. a breakdown and discussion of those two albums and so forth. So you can check all of that out if you're interested. And certainly if you've enjoyed this video, please consider sharing it out on social media. Help spread the word that way. And as you know, up next, we will be talking about 1978. So do check back for that. All right, everyone, take care. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Bye-bye, everyone.